Hello and welcome to a special program on the World Cup. Well, it's the penultimate day minus the final at the Ahmedabad Narendra Modi Stadium today. We've got an exciting 1 hour of discussion where we'll talk about the details, the stats, the players who are impact players for the tournament, the doers, the movers, the shakers, and the ones who've left out of the World Cup. Well, joining me as a host of well-known guests who've been with us in the last 6 weeks, most importantly, and I say it with great honor to have Tasneem Granger, the international cricketer from Zimbabwe who spent 45 days here keeping a 13-month-old baby back home, but she's here doing the broadcast, looking out at the stats with her. Also joining me is Paul Dinette, the Aussie, the ever-cheerful Aussie who's been working tirelessly behind the scenes, churning out some amazing facts and figures to make this broadcast look very exciting. Well, we'll start off with Tasneem. Tasneem Granger, what do we have? Delight us with some stats that you think we should know as fans.
So good morning to you all, and definitely a very exciting game coming up tomorrow. We've been watching all the games alongside us as well, and you will know that India are unbeaten in 10 matches leading up to the semi-final, leading up to this final, looking to make it their 11th win this tournament in an unbeaten run. As well as Australia, they came off a 3-match loss, right all the way now just to keep the momentum going. You know, they had a brilliant game against South Africa as well. And they'll just be looking to continue to cause a few upsets along the way as they have so far. Something to take note of, they are the 5-time champions in 1987, 1999, 2003, 2007, and again in 2015. Can they make it happen again in 2023 and do this one for Paul Dinette, who's been constantly with us on this show and just backing his boys regardless of what's been going on. These two teams as well, in the middle overs, you know, and something just to put out for them. Their spinners this World Cup have had 10 matches. They've conceded Australia has played in 10 matches so far. They've scored 1,434 runs against spin bowlers. So the likes of probably be looking to take on the likes of Kuldeep Yadav as well as Ravindra Jadeja, because we know what's been going on with Mohammad Shami, Siraj, as well as Bumrah at the top. So maybe they'll just be looking to try their luck against them. Their current strike rate against spin sitting at 88.77.
All right, that's an interesting thought. We also have another statistician, data analyst joining from Dubai, Kamran Muzaffar. Kamran, welcome to the show. You've enthralled us with some of the amazing data, facts, figures. I think, what do you make up of it when it comes to the batting lineup and the batting stats of India, and then we talk about Australia? First, over to you on the economy rate, on the strike rate, and of the rotation, your average.
Thank you, Sunil. I think from batting perspective, if you talk about specifically the power play batting, right, Indian batting has been miles ahead, and they have lost lesser wickets, and they have scored with a higher strike rate as compared to the Australian side. They have their problems up front with the wickets and all of that. Strike rate, yes, since Travis Head has returned and David Warner has come back to form, or he's among the runs, right, they are going hard at it, but they are losing wickets more frequently than India, and in the big pressure match, that might play a big role in the outcome of the game.
Absolutely. Very interesting insight. Paul, do you look that as a sign of, is it an ominous sign for you, considering India has been explosive in the power play and they've been scoring at a very fast, perhaps the highest in this World Cup? What are your views? Paul Dinette.
Hello.
Yes, welcome to the show. Does these facts trouble you, surprise you, or scare you?
Well, they don't surprise me because it's been pretty evident throughout the whole tournament how wonderful India have been going.
Right.
Maybe they do scam you a little bit, if I'm being honest. It's a Saturday night tonight in Sydney. I'm looking forward to a stress-free night because I know that tomorrow night I'm probably more keyed up for a game of cricket than I can remember, maybe since 1999 in that World Cup then. So, yeah, you look at it and the top halves, the sort of the best performing batters of Australia and India, you maybe say there's a bit of an equality there, but it does drop away in the Australian lineup that Smith and Labuschagne, although they've played important innings, haven't been on fire in the same way that the Indians have. Really only Surya Kumar Yadav, but lack of opportunities, and they haven't really needed him to do much. So I think Australia is more dependent on individuals firing than maybe India, where it seems that if one person doesn't do it, then someone else is guaranteed to.
All right. Also, we talk about the percentage of batting. I've got some amazing facts. Out of 711 of Virat Kohli, 56% of the run he's actually run, and 56% of the runs he's actually run, and 44% of runs he's hit via boundary. The another percentage which is high is Denson, which is 244 runs he's run across the field, and 204 runs he's got 45%. Another interesting player that we can look at is Shreyas Iyer. He seemed to be batting in a completely different zone altogether. He's got 244 runs that he's run, and 230 runs he's hit by boundaries and sixes. Now, Kamran Muzaffar, do you think this statistic is eye-popping for the rest of the world, considering the way Shreyas Iyer has been going and doing his duty? Your views?
Definitely, Sunil, because before that you mentioned Virat Kohli and his prowess in running, and he's running like an 18-year-old out there in the middle. We saw the other day in the semi-final when the younger boys were feeling cramps and all that, but Kohli is super fit in that regard, and he has been given a role, and he is playing that role spectacularly, precisely well. So the template that the Indian side has, Rohit is going to come out and he's going to try to make it easier for everyone else and bide some time for Kohli to settle in a bit. And if he goes, then then Shubman Gill is going to take up that role, and Virat Kohli is the one who is going to try to bat till the 40th over, so they do not get into the fear of or that luxury that you do not have of having batters down the order. So India are playing with a longer tail.
Yes.
So that's the role of Virat Kohli. And while doing that, at one side he tries to protect the Indian side from exposing the tail much earlier than expected, but at the same time keep a healthy run rate.
Absolutely.
And for that, he has the cover of Shubman Gill, Shreyas Iyer, and then KL Rahul. So Shreyas Iyer, the innings that he has played in semi-final, it's a classic textbook innings. What India expected of him. He came in, he gave kind of a respite or support to Kohli, and when it mattered, in the last 10 overs, he scored 41 of 21. He finished the innings as well in that regard. And same goes for KL Rahul as well. So when it was required in the game against Australia earlier, he played like a test match. And when it was in semi-final, when they needed some power hitting, he scored 39 of 20 as well. So that's the template that Indian batting are following. And I think Shreyas Iyer and Virat Kohli, they are both playing their part very well.
Absolutely, they're playing the part very well. Tasneem Granger, would you like to add on to the statistics of what our friend Kamran Muzaffar has added, especially on Shreyas Iyer, and then we will go on to the other player and then get Paul Dennett in as well for head-to-head.
So just something for you. So far this World Cup, Shreyas Iyer has been in 10 innings. He's scored a total of 526 runs. This is spectacular in the fact that, he hasn't entirely come out and just scored consistent 30s or 50s, but he's lifted up his bat in this tournament for 350s and 200s on this occasion. He's scored a total number of 36 fours and 24 sixes. He's averaging just over 75.14, and his strike rate is 113 100.11 with the highest score of 128 not outs so far this tournament.
Paul, does it seize the discussion of number 4 position of India? Because that's been a tumultuous kind of a situation for India, and it was kind of an Achilles heel. India was going one up, one down. Do you think in Shreyas Iyer they have some a mix of Chris Gayle and a swagger of Viv Richards? Because we belong to the olden generation. We are lucky to have seen them, and the long hitting of Carl Hooper. Do you think?
Well, it's a big set of raps there, but he's been playing fantastically well. And yes, as an Australian fan, he is a player that I am nervous about when he comes out to bat, definitely. And yeah, I think it's a good comparison with the Australian middle order that we've got Mitchell Marsh, who has at times in this tournament looked superb, but a bit to your earlier points around the ratio of boundaries to
running
singles scored.
Yes.
That's where Mitchell Marsh struggles. That if it's a pitch where there's a bit of a, if there's an early wicket falls and the Indian bowlers are on top, he's a little bit of a 6 or a 4 or nothing. And you might wonder whether it's in Australia's best interest to maybe lower him down the order and get the test class of Smith and Labuschagne in if those are the sorts of conditions that are going to prevail. But yeah, Shreyas Iyer, if he wants to change citizenship and become an Australian, we're not going to say no.
But what about Mitchell Marsh? Isn't he taking a leaf out of his dad's book, considering he was very good at maneuvering and just holding it on when the wickets were down or when Boone was out? Your views?
Well, I think that he's got there's two parts to his game. Half of it is similar to his dad in that he's a little bit stodgy, but the other half, he couldn't be more different from his father. I mean, some of the shots that he plays, you would swear that he's been adopted. There's no way that Jeff Marsh was ever going to be playing those sorts of shots. Mitchell Marsh on song looks better than any other batter in the world.
Absolutely.
But against really high quality bowling, he can get found out.
What about Travis Head? He's been your impact player, and I'll draw Kamran Muzaffar. He's got an amazing stat and insight about Travis Head, especially in the last 2 games. Kamran, would you like to talk about Travis Head, how impact player that he's going to become, or he's capable of?
What he's capable of, he has showcased it pretty well in the semi-finals. So I think between the two teams, Travis Head was the difference because the 2 wickets he took off Klaasen and Janssen, that practically brought down the eventual total of South Africa, I think 40 runs below.
Just for the benefit, Kamran, we've had this discussion off screen. Just help us explain to the fans who are trying to demystify and look beyond the scorecard and the facts and the stats. Just help us explain how he's managed to get 40 runs lesser to the South African, which was perhaps the game changer. Your views?
So, Sunil, when Miller joined Klaasen in the middle, it was 24 for 4 after 12 overs.
Yes.
So South African innings was going nowhere.
Destroyed.
But from there, South African pair, they did not only reconstructed the innings, but they reconstructed at a good pace. And the one thing that they did in that passage was they took out Zampa. They completely took Zampa out of the attack. 40 runs for 5 overs, and Klaasen was going guns at that time, and that partnership was literally taking off at that point. And it looked like that the runs that Australia had reduced in the first 10 overs, they are going to compensate for it. And on that service, 250, 260, I think that would be a much more competitive score over there because that game eventually went down to the wire. So in 31st over, Australia, Pat Cummins forced to make a change, brought in Travis Head, and he hit him for 2 fours. And after that, he took those 2 wickets. So imagine if there were 18 overs left, Klaasen and Miller sat on that surface. You can expect they would definitely score somewhere around 150 runs because they were getting in their groove. And they were in that passage before that over,
right.
4 or 5 overs. They did not look troubled at all.
Absolutely.
But what those two wickets did, that forced them into reconstruction again. Gerard Coetzee played a good innings, and eventually I think they finished on 213 had those wickets not come in that over.
Exactly.
South Africa
So
might
therefore,
have finished on
he becomes the, Travis Head becomes the impact player for the semi-final. Paul Dinette, would you agree to the entire hypothesis and the deconstruction of the innings? Your views?
Absolutely, and it's worth mentioning that we all have something in common with Travis Head, and that is that he, like us, began this World Cup watching it on his lounge. He was in Adelaide; he wasn't even in there, and it's a great credit to the Australian selectors that they effectively started the tournament with 14 players, knowing how important he was with bat and ball, because those 2 wickets, as Cameron said, were probably the key of the game. But then the way that he approached the batting was key as well, that he realised that this is the sort of pitch where the first 10, 15 overs is going to be the easiest period. So make runs when you can. He took some risks. He rode his luck, but without his innings, if you had a more traditional opener playing in that spot, no matter how good they would have been, I don't think Australia would have gone on to win the match. So there's a reason that the Australian selectors kept him in the side. He's been our best batter for the last couple of years, and his bowling is undervalued because in Australian conditions, his bowling's not all that impressive because our pitches don't do much. But when you take him to India, if the pitch does anything, it's a good sign. If Maxwell's spinning it, then Head will spin it, and Head will actually spin it even more than Maxwell. I think he has a role to play with the ball in the World Cup final, especially if our 3 big quicks are finding not much swing, and if the Indians are getting on top of them. We may need Travis Head to bowl more than 5 overs. We may need him to bowl a full 10-over complement.
Well, that's an interesting. Tasmin, add your views here, and then I'll go back to my colleague, Ananya and Dharamveer, who have spoken to a few fans out there, and we'll get their view in, and we'll resume the conversation of the middle order batting between India and Australia. Tasneem, your views.
So I just want to point you guys back up to the fact that you are talking about Travis Head and David Warner. For me, there hasn't been a more destructive opening partnership between the 2 of them, what they did against Sri Lanka. But just something to point you to in this direction. You have Rohit Sharma on the end of the coin today. He scored 550 runs with a total of 90 boundaries. He's faced 443 balls, and his highest score is 100. His highest is 131. His strike rate as well is at 124. His average just on to 55. The other side of the coin, you have David Warner.
Yes.
He's scored 528 runs. He's got 73 boundaries. He's faced a total number of 491 balls. His highest, 163. And his average sitting at 52 with a strike rate of 107. Thus, taking into consideration who they're standing with next to them at the crease, you have Shubman Gill on one side, and you have Travis Head on the other side. I think for me, what comes out on top here is what actually happens once these 2 guys go out. What approach do each person on the other end, number 2s in their team, take on? And for me, we've seen Shubman Gill, and this is where I find the balance really, really exciting, because they haven't changed their roles. They haven't thought to play the role of, okay, I'm going to slow down, and because David is gone or because Rohit is gone, I'm going to change the way I play, but they've continued to accelerate. Yes, Shubman maybe go back into a bit of a reserved sort of situation, but Travis, on the other hand, he just continuously keeps exploding, knowing the fact of something you did mention as well is he does have the backing of Mitchell Marsh as well, coming in at number 3. But this is where it gets interesting for me, because regardless of what happens with the number 3 being Virat Kohli, who you cannot, no offense to anybody, match against Travis Marsh. Virat Kohli is just in his own league right now. He still has Shreyas Iyer following him up at 4. And this is where it gets exciting for me, for Australia, because they don't entirely have a solid number 4 that's come to the show for them this tournament. Steve Smith is hot and cold at any given time, and he seems to be hot at the right times, but cold sometimes when it's not entirely necessary for his team. So this is where I believe that India will be looking to strike. Probably 1, 2, and 3, maybe as solid as they come for them up front. But from around number 4, number 5, just before you get the heroics of obviously Marius Labuschagne as well as Glenn Maxwell coming in to rescue the show again, this is where India might look to actually capitalize and bowl their most overs at them, regardless of not taking wickets as well.
Well, absolutely. That's quite heavy stats, heavy analysis. We'll take my colleague on, who've spoken to a few fans. In the meanwhile, my guest can go get their coffee back, get their breath back, get the stats going, and then we'll resume on our conversation. But right now, Ananya and Dharamveer were speaking to some fans live. Yes, Ananya.
इस वक्त हमारे साथ कुछ फैंस मौजूद हैं और इनका कल एक कल्चरल प्रोग्राम भी होने वाला है, क्योंकि जब हम गुजरात की बात करते हैं तो हमारे दिमाग में सबसे पहले गरबा आता है। क्या प्रोग्राम कल होने वाला है आप लोगों का स्टेडियम के अंदर?
कल हम लोगों के टोटल 3 ग्रुप डिवाइड है। जो पूरे स्टेडियम के अंदर जो वीआईपी बॉक्स है उसके आगे एक बॉलीवुड डांस का परफॉर्मेंस होगा और उसके दोनों साइड में कल्चरल हमारा गरबा का डांस का परफॉर्मेंस होगा। और हमारे लिए बहुत ही प्राउड की बात है कि हम लोग हमारे सभी इंडियन प्लेयर्स के सामने और पूरे वर्ल्ड के सामने हम लोग लाइव में परफॉर्मेंस देने वाले हैं। और हमारे लिए ये भी बहुत प्राउड की बात है कि हम हमारे होम ग्राउंड के अंदर जाके हम परफॉर्मेंस देने वाले हैं।
आप अपने होम ग्राउंड के अंदर परफॉर्म करने वाले हैं। कल मैच देखने का तो मौका मिलेगा ही, साथ में परफॉर्मेंस भी है। कितना एक्साइटेड है कल को लेकर?
बहुत ही एक्साइटेड है हम लोग कल को लेकर। और हम जो प्रोग्राम कर रहे हैं सब लोग देखकर मतलब एकदम ही खुश हो जाएंगे, सारे प्लेयर्स सब लोग। और एक सरप्राइज़ है सभी के लिए, पूरे वर्ल्ड के लिए। और ये हमारा होम ग्राउंड है तो ये करना बनता है। हमको बहुत प्राउड फील हो रहा है इंडिया के लिए।
इंडिया के लिए प्राउड फील हो रहा है। इंडिया से कल एक्सपेक्टेशंस क्या है? कौन सा खिलाड़ी आपका फेवरेट है?
मुझे एक तो विराट कोहली और एक सुमन गिल, ये दोनों की बैटिंग एक नंबर लगती है। तो कल इंडिया जीतेगी और विराट कोहली भी शतक मारेगा और सुमन गिल भी शतक मारने वाला है कल। तो चाहता हूँ कि इंडिया जीते।
आपका भी परफॉर्मेंस है वहाँ पर?
हाँ, डांस का परफॉर्मेंस है। जैसे कि हमारा अलग अलग न्यू फॉर्मेशन होगा, सब कुछ अलग अलग डांस है, बॉलीवुड है। और गुजरात में अहमदाबाद में मतलब गरबा तो होने ही वाला है, तो गरबा वगैरह भी है। तो ये सब रहेगा।
और भी कुछ फैंस हमारे साथ हैं। आप मैच देखने के लिए आए हैं?
नहीं, आई एम डांसर।
अच्छा, आप सब डांसर्स हो। आपका परफॉर्मेंस कल होने वाला है, मैच देखने को भी मिलेगा और आप लोगों का होम ग्राउंड है, गरबा आप वहाँ पर करोगे। किस तरह से क्या परफॉर्मेंस रहने वाली है?
हम लोग एक्चुअली एज अ बॉलीवुड डांसर्स यहाँ पे हैं और 1 टाइप ऑफ बॉलीवुड थीम सॉन्ग्स पे हम लोग परफॉर्म करने वाले हैं और 2 टाइप्स का हमारा लाइक कल्चरल एंड बॉलीवुड दोनों साइड से हमारा फुल ऑन 100% है। लेट्स सी हाउ दे डू।
कल्चरल और बॉलीवुड दोनों ही परफॉर्मेंस है। आपका क्या परफॉर्मेंस रहने वाला है?
मेरा भी बॉलीवुड में ही परफॉर्मेंस है। सबके लिए सरप्राइज है, पूरे वर्ल्ड के लिए।
लेकिन इसके साथ ही देखिए कुछ और भी फैंस हमारे साथ हैं। आप देखिए यहाँ पर लोगों का जमावड़ा जो है वो अभी से साफ तौर पर नज़र आ रहा है। किस तरह से लोगों में दीवानगी जो है वो देखी जा रही है। एक शख्स हमारे साथ है, रौनक जी। मुझे लगता है आप 10 मैचेस अभी तक हुए हैं टीम इंडिया के, 10 जीती और आपने सारे मैचेस देखे हैं।
सारे मैच देखे।
कल को लेकर क्या एक्साइटमेंट है?
कल इंडिया जीतेगा और कुलदीप यादव 5 विकेट लेगा। जीतेगा भाई, इंडिया जीतेगा, जीतेगा भाई, जीतेगा कल इंडिया का।
Well, that was my colleague Ananya, who's actually standing outside the stadium. The tickets are absolutely impossible to get. It's a big kind of an extravaganza that is happening. Let me just quickly read out what do they have in store. Well, we've got an air show happening with a salute in the sky by the Indian Air Force. Then you have Garba, as they said. Details of the air show, I'll just quickly read it out. There is the air show is in accordance to ICC. Then there is a half-minute performance, half-time performance of 15 minutes. The parade of the champions, where all the winning captains and the legends of the game will walk around, will be given the honor, and the trophy would be displayed. Then you have Jashan that rocks the stadium globally, and Indian music director Preetham is going to enthrall the audience with some stuff out there, which is amazing. Second innings, in the drink interval, you will have the laser show. You will get other things as well. Well, that's all we had for, and again, we've got a laser show at the end of it. Well, Paul, do you think this looks like the biggest sporting World Cup final, bigger than the, any of the other things that you've seen, including the FIFA World Cup?
Well, I mean, that's a big call. The FIFA World Cup's pretty big. But I think, in addition to all the pageantry and all of the periphery, if it turns out to be a classic game,
yes,
then it can start to elevate to that sort of level. Maybe if we can get a super over, maybe if we can get 2 super overs. They've taken out that law. It's no longer the most boundaries. They just keep on playing super overs, I think, till the game is finished. So I'd love to see. I don't know if my heart can take it, but I'd love to see a really close finish. That's what the tournament deserves.
Well, absolutely. That's what the tournament deserves, and that's what we are headed towards. Tasmin, let's move on to number 5, the wicketkeeper between the two teams. Let's talk about it. You want to give it a shot? Go on.
Yeah, definitely. So we just look at what they've done so far, and I find it very interesting. Again, I feel like this might be a bit of a unfair comparison because, on the one hand, you have KL Rahul, who's been in spectacular touch. Maybe he didn't get off to a flyer of a start currently in this World Cup, but then you look at it, he's got 100 to his name, as well as he's put up a couple of good partnerships with the likes of Shreyas Iyer on 2 occasions, pushing India through in the last couple of league stages as well as into their semi-final. On the other end of the coin, you have a man in Josh Ingles. Maybe Paul can just let us know what he thinks has been going on with
Paul,
Josh.
just take us through your wicketkeeper, because we had just got
1 innings only. And that was the last in the semi-final where he finally looked to be finding his feet. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough momentum to help him push on against the flawless bowling of the Indian attack.
Josh, yes.
It's a very good point. I selected my combined Australia-India side today on social media, and the wicketkeeper position was just about the easiest. Obviously, it was going to be KL Rahul. And Josh Inglis wasn't the Australian wicketkeeper at the start of the tournament. Alex Carey played the first game and then was kind of sensationally dropped. Inglis's numbers are pretty ordinary, but as Tasmin said, he played an important little innings in that semi-final, kind of a match-winning innings. He made another half-century in the tournament. He's shown some signs, and for a player who's kind of almost coming of age at international level in these games, for a bloke who grew up in Western Australia where the conditions are kind of as different as you can get to Indian conditions, I think he's going okay. He's not someone that I'm going to have an enormous amount of faith with if he's walking out to bat against high-quality spin bowling, but there's something about him that I like. So, as I said, Rahul has knocked the lights out compared to him, but don't discount Inglis. He's a pretty handy player.
Well, absolutely. Don't discount Inglis. Now, let's go on to spinner. That's our interesting topic. Ravindra Jadeja. Kamran Muzaffar, we want your inputs on Ravindra Jadeja.
Ravindra Jadeja has been, I think, that fulcrum around which Kuldeep Yadav spins. Because if he doesn't provide that grip or that control in the game, Kuldeep may not be able to express himself. So he is very, very important. And he's either bowling with Kuldeep in the middle overs or with Shami. And those are the 2 strike bowlers. But when the strike bowlers, to let them strike most brutally, you need someone at the other end who can keep things tight. And in the process, he can produce deliveries like he produced against Stevie Smith in the league game. So he has been the star performer for India in bowling.
Absolutely. We move on to the Pacers right now. In a detailed discussion, we will get through the statistics. But what about the Pacers to Pacers as compared to the Aussies? Kamran, your views, and I'll go on to Tasneem and then on to Paul Dinette.
So basically, when it comes to Pacers, obviously Siraj looks a bit off color in that sense, but I think he's playing his role as well. Bumrah keeping it tight, but most of the teams, they are playing Bumrah with a lots of respect, and which is forcing them to attack Siraj if they have to. And in the process, Siraj is getting 1 out wicket. What else Siraj is doing is allowing Rohit the luxury to use Shami whenever he wants. Whenever the situation is more suited for Shami, because Shami is in that kind of a form where he can get wickets on full tosses as well.
Absolutely.
That's how it is going.
Absolutely.
Not saying that he hasn't produced some magical deliveries, but sometimes it happens. When you come to the Australian Pacers,
right?
Mitchell Starc, he has been off color. Hazelwood, he has been, you can say, neat, tidy. But he hasn't been that, you can say, productive in the sense of knocking the wickets out, except for the semi-finals.
Very interesting
and,
point.
Pat Cummins.
Very interesting.
Pat Cummins again. Yeah. He has been. I believe because he's bowling in the middle and the deck. he's a bit expensive, more expensive what Australia would have envisioned at the start of the tournament. But if you have to compare the two pace attacks, I would say if I set up, you can say yardstick, if India is at 10, I would say Australia are around 7 to 8 at the moment.
Paul, before I come to you, Tasneem, would you agree to Kamran Muzaffar's statement? If India is at 10, Australia is at 8.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think maybe I'd even give Australia around about an 8.5, especially basing it on their performance against South Africa yesterday. I think that might have, day before yesterday, sorry, that's actually been the first time for me this World Cup that we've actually remembered who Mitchell Starc is, as well as the likes of Pat Cummins, and well supported again by Josh Hazlewood, who's been completely quiet in this tournament, but just going about his business and creating the trouble for the likes of Adam Zampa and everybody else around him to come in and be able to actually bowl to them. For me, you know, they've moved the ball the greatest for me this entire tournament in their match against South Africa, and probably some of the bigger margins that we've only actually seen by Indian players. Something just to put a couple of numbers out there, and they are passing on your screen as well if you are watching our feed live. In 10 innings, Jasprit Bumrah has taken 18 wickets. His best bowling figures are 4 for 39. He's conceded just 330 runs in 82.5 overs. He's got an average of 18.33 and an economy of 3.98. Again, for me, the fact that he's a seam bowler with the likes of, you know, the people batting out there like David Warner, Travis Head, Quinton de Kock, and he's still managing to go under 4. That just says volumes about how great his bowling's been this tournament, regardless of the fact that his wickets column may not be showing out. But again, you have Mohammad Shami. He's had 6 innings. He's taken 23 wickets. He currently finds himself as the leading wicket taker of this tournament at the top. This following a great performance of 7 for 57 in their last match. He's conceded just 210 runs in 41.5 overs, half the time of Jasprit Bumrah. He has an average of 9.13 and an economy of 5.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Paul, after you, we'll go to Ananya, my colleague, who's actually at the stadium talking to the fans. But before that, a quick word from you on what the two esteemed guests have said.
The big number for me is Mohammad Shami averaging 9. Whenever you see a bowler averaging 9, almost invariably, you also see that they played in the 1880s or the 1890s. It just doesn't happen anymore. And this is just... Scott Boland did it recently, but this is just incredible. I think that he's on par to becoming the player of the tournament should India win. Well, the other thing I'll say is I'm not superstitious, but I bit my tongue. I didn't criticise Starc. I didn't criticise him. Then finally, before the semi-final, I said it's time for him to be dropped, and he came out and was the star. So there you go.
Well, absolutely. Well, can I ask my colleagues to put on what my colleague Ananya has been up to, talking to the fans outside the stadium, and let's listen in to her and understand what she's up to. Yes, please hear.
क्रिकेट फैंस की दीवानगी जितना कहा जाए उतना कम है। हमारे साथ एक शख्स यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं जिनके पास 1987 का जो मैच का टिकट है और इन्होंने इसे फ्रेम कराया हुआ है, यादों के तौर पर है। क्या लगता है इसे देखकर और कल को लेकर आपकी क्या उम्मीद है?
कल को लेकर तो कल तो इंडिया डेफिनेटली जीतेगा। इंडिया तो मेरा लगता है कि जितना भी वर्ल्ड कप सारे हुआ इतना बेहतर इंडिया परफॉर्मेंस नहीं हुआ, कोई भी नहीं हुआ कि कंसेक्यूटिव सारे मैच जीत गया। इंडिया को जीत तो रखा ही है। और रही मेरा जो कलेक्शन है 1987 साल का क्रिकेट वर्ल्ड कप का टिकट, मैं उस समय 10 साल के रहे, मेरा भैया मेरा एल्डर ब्रदर मुझे लेकर आया था। मैं कलकत्ता से 250 किलोमीटर दूर में रहता हूँ। 1987 साल में वहाँ पर आना भी बड़ा टफ था, लेना भी बड़ा टफ था।
1987 से आप इतने बड़े फैन?
हाँ, आज भी मैं सारे क्रिकेटर, सचिन तेंदुलकर, कपिल देव जी, ऑल साउथ अफ्रीका क्रिकेट टीम, सब क्रिकेटर से मिल चुका हूँ। मेरा कपिल देव जी से अच्छा, मैंने उनको ऑनलाइन पर फैन क्लब चलाता हूँ। मैं 1994 साल में कपिल देव जी का घर भी गया था, उनसे मिला भी है। उम्मीद करूंगा कल उनसे मिलने के लिए। उनका
कौन सा खिलाड़ी आपका फेवरेट है?
आज के डेफिनेटली विराट कोहली।
आपका?
विराट कोहली।
क्या लग रही है कल को लेकर?
इंडिया ही जीतेगा।
विराट कोहली। कहाँ से आया?
राजकोट से।
राजकोट से आया। आप कहाँ से आए?
विराट कोहली।
विराट कोहली। मैच देखने के लिए आए हैं आप स्पेशली?
टिकट ही नहीं है का मैच देखने।
टिकट नहीं मिला आपको?
टिकट तो नहीं मिलता, ट्राई करते हैं। हाँ, मुश्किल है। बस सुबह से ट्राई करते हैं तो शायद मिल जाए तो ले लेंगे।
आप कहाँ से आए हैं?
मैं तो इधर का ही मोटर का सामने रहता हूँ।
तो स्पेशली मैच को लेकर टिकट मिल गया आपको?
कैसे मिलेगा, एक भी मैच नहीं देखा मैंने तो
एक मुझे लगता है कि चुनौती है लोगों के सामने। मैच तो हर कोई देखना चाहता है पर हर किसी को टिकट जो है, कुछ और भी छोटे फैंस हमारे साथ हैं। आप मैच देखने के लिए आए हैं?
यस।
क्या लग रहा है कल टीम इंडिया को लेकर?
इंडिया जीत जाएगी।
कौन सा खिलाड़ी फेवरेट है आपका?
विराट कोहली।
विराट कोहली फेवरेट है आपका?
विराट कोहली।
विराट कोहली। इंडिया जीतेगा कल?
हाँ जीतेगा।
चीयर्स करने आए इंडिया को?
हाँ आएंगे।
विराट कोहली। विराट कोहली जीतेगा। हाँ। मोहम्मद शमी? हाँ। 2-3 ही नाम है आजकल जुबान पर। पिछले मैच में अगर हम देखें श्रेयस अय्यर, विराट कोहली और मोहम्मद शमी, जिस तरह से उन्होंने 7 विकेट लिए। एक और हमारे साथ क्रिकेट के बहुत बड़े फैन हैं और मैं चाहती हूँ कि देखिए जब आप किसी भी चीज़ को लेकर आपकी दिलचस्पी होती है तो कोई बाधा आपके सामने नहीं आ सकती। क्या नाम है आपका?
मेरा नाम धर्मवीर पाल है।
धर्मवीर पाल। धर्मवीर जी, कितने सालों से आप मैच देख रहे हैं?
लास्ट 15 ईयर्स कंटिन्यू इंडिया टीम को फॉलो कर रहा हूँ।
15 साल से जहां भी मैच होता है वहां जाते हैं, फॉरेन कंट्रीज में भी?
बिल्कुल।
Well, that's the time we had of the year. We've been waiting for 4 years after the World Cup in Lords, where we were present. It was quite an amazing thing. Again, one thing is very sure: you're not going to get the tickets unless the luck gods favor you. However, we come back on to our stats part, and this is where Kamran Muzaffar comes into place. Paul Dinette takes, either he becomes the glove or the punching bag. We'll see on that. But again, we've done the matchup of 2 of the players together. Let's see where they stand. Adam Zampa versus Jadeja. Jadeja is at 16 wickets, Zampa at 22. Jadeja has conceded 355 runs against Zampa's 471 runs. Again, you must remember he wasn't into his groove in the first 2 matches. He went for runs. That's how it is. The overs between the two, it looks like more or less the same. But here what? Here is the big difference according to us. You've got 4 maiden overs by Jadeja as compared to 1 by Zampa. Average looks almost the same. But economy, take us through that, Tasneem.
Yeah, definitely. So something for you to look at here. You already automatically can see at hindsight. Zampa's out here taking wickets and Jadeja's out here being economical. So for me, that means, you got to think of the fact that Zampa is the only head spinner for Australia as well.
Absolutely.
He's backed up by 2 part-timers in Glenn Maxwell and recently Travis Head.
I don't know where he came out from. But this is a question that I'm going to throw on to Kamran Muzaffar. Kamran, it's about heart and mind. It's about wickets and economy. It's about restricting the opposition rather than taking the wickets and going for runs. You tell us the difference between the 2 bowlers, and then we go on to the next head-to-head. Go on.
Look, the most obvious difference between the 2 bowlers is basically you have the summary numbers. But if you go into the details, Jadeja has been more consistent and Zampa has been a bit up and down.
Right.
So in some of the matches, he has bowled exceptionally well. And in some of the matches, it didn't really work out. Like in the first game against India at Lucknow, the first game that 2 teams had, and in the semi-final, the crucial game as well. So, but Jadeja, I think he hasn't had any off days as yet. Yes, in some of the matches, he may not have taken that many wickets, but he didn't give any headaches or any question marks or any troubles to the captain Rohit. On the other hand, Zampa, in some of the matches, Pat Cummins was forced to think about how to utilize his overs. In fact, against Pakistan as well, which the game they won, he had to brought him back after the 38th over because in the first 7 overs, although he got Babar out, but he had not given him the control. So, but on the other hand, Jadeja is the guy who has been providing Rohit the control more than anyone else in the middle overs, even more than Kuldeep Yadav.
Absolutely. Now we go on to Shami, the man of the moment. Shami versus Cummins. Well, one is a skipper, the other was just cooling his heels outside, waiting in the first 3 matches. Let's look at the difference. The first difference is Shami is at 23.
Just 23 against 13 wickets coming in for Cummins. Again, the amount of runs conceded by Shami versus Cummins again. 210 runs by Shami versus 481.
But more importantly, he's bowled half the number of overs because for the first 3 matches, Shami was nowhere to be seen except the dugout.
Definitely. But again, if you look at the maidens bowled by Shami versus Pat Cummins again, this will tell you, you know, for me, I'm just going to tell you something personally that where Shami gets it right for me is the fact that you never know if he's consistently going to wake up that morning and decide he's bowling in swingers, or he's going to just decide he's changing up on you and he's bowling 50-50 percentages of the deliveries.
Well,
I think that's somewhere where he's personally had people trapped down.
This is for the fans out there who want to demystify, deconstruct the thing. We are saying the wickets are higher. Let's look at the average, which is 9.13 as compared to 37, and the economy net of Shami, which is 5. So you have more wickets, you have less runs, you've got more number of maidens, you've got less average of the runs conceded, and also the economy. Just take us through the difference between the average, the economy, and what would you look into if you were picking up the bowler?
Yeah, definitely. So there's going to be a big difference between the averages here because of obviously the amount of overs bowled. Shami just halfway through the amount of overs. But even if you double his average to try and get to the same amount of overs, that means he still might be going at somewhere around
20.
Yeah, around 18 to 20. And this is still substantial as compared to the 37. His economy definitely is showing you that he's been way economical, way more than Pat Cummins right now. And I think, like we said, Australia hasn't exactly, their seamers haven't got into the groove. Paul did mention as well that they've been failing to take early wickets up front, and this constitutes to them bowling to top order batters for a longer period of time.
Now, Kamran Muzaffar, you're there, you've seen the stats, you know what Shami looks like in his stats. Tell us, is he having a dream run? Is it one of the greatest bowling in the World Cup that you've seen, analysed and looked at?
Definitely, and especially the point you made earlier. So a lot of people thought that he was warming the benches, but I believe the bench warmed him up much more. Yeah. And he had hit the ground running right from the first game. He took 5 wickets in the first game, and after that, he has that kind of he's carrying that kind of a Midas touch with him. Whatever he's touching, whenever he's coming. The first ball of the match, of the first spell or the second spell, he's getting wickets, which is most crucial. It has been more crucial in this tournament, and in the finals, in the pressure game, nothing would be more valuable than wickets. If you have a bowler who can get wickets, and it is definitely going to have much more impact than a wicket would have in any other game of the
Just hold on to that thought. Paul Dinette, do you think this is the bowler that will give you more nightmares than anyone else? We're talking about Shami.
Yeah, I mean, possibly, but I have nightmares about... Jadeja is always the one that gives me the most nightmares. But in terms of the head-to-head, Shami is miles clear of Cummins in this tournament. You know, Shami is the first fast bowler I pick in my combined team of the tournament. Cummins probably wouldn't make my top 5 teams at the moment. And I think that's a significant problem for Australia, that our fast bowling always has been our strong suit. But at the moment, looking at it going into it, Shami and Bumrah have just had tournaments vastly superior to all of the Australian bowlers. Cummins has tried hard. He's bowled a lot of slower balls. He has bowled, as Cameron made a good point, that he's bowled in those difficult middle overs, often off the back of the opening bowlers not getting wickets. So it hasn't been easy. He's adapted well, and he's a quality bowler. Everywhere around his test record is, at this stage, almost better than Glenn McGrath's tournament. And, you know, maybe that's the upside for Australia, that if he does happen to finally fire, then we can see something amazing. But as I said, he's scraped, he's worked hard, he's done a serviceable job. But Shami, as I said, is on line to be player of the tournament.
Now let's look at Rohit Sharma, the destructive batter, and very quickly we're going to take his stats. 10 innings, 550 runs, 443 balls faced, highest score is 131, average is 55, strike rate is 124. He's got 350s, 100, 62 fours and 28 sixes. Kamran, yesterday we discussed, you said that he's the most unselfish player, skipper, that you've seen in a long time. Just explain what it means, especially that 40s and 50s that you were talking about. Go on.
Yeah, Sunil, because if you ask me, and Paul made very good points, and the point he made about Shami as potentially the player of the tournament, my player of the tournament, I think whatever the result might be of the final is Rohit Sharma. The way he has batted in this tournament, and he has realized that he has to play for the team. He also has 31 innings. He had the opportunity 500s in the previous edition of the World Cup in 2019. He could have gone into the record books for number of centuries as well. He had a good chance. But what he preferred, and setting the example by himself, going in there and taking the bowlers on. If it works out, it makes everyone's life much easier.
Absolutely.
And it gives everyone extra time to settle in and then launch again.
Absolutely.
And we saw in the England game as well, when the wickets fell from the other side, when Virat Kohli got out for a duck, when that linchpin or that sheet anchor was taken out by England, then he adopted, or he took on that role for himself. So he slowed down a bit, more considerate of bowling and lesser risk, and he adopted according to the situation.
Absolutely.
So I would say, and like you were saying, 12.6 for every 6 hit in power play. He has hit 21 sixes in power play.
21 sixes
That's
in power
amazing.
play. Who does that? Who does that? I mean,
He's a real power. He's a real power hitter in the power play.
Is
Others
he-
are, and to an extent, allow me to complete this thing. This might be interesting. That there are in the power play in this World Cup, there have been only 2 real power hitters. One Rohit Sharma, and the other is Travis Head. And it is befitting in that sense that they are going to fight it off in a grand finale.
absolutely. Thank you, Kamran, for throwing that light. Now, Paul Dinette, does it make you feel happy now that you've got Travis Head as one of the impact players?
Certainly does, and there's nothing like watching Head and Sharma. It's a great point that Cameron makes, because when I'm watching Rohit Sharma bat tomorrow night, I know that the Australian bowlers have got a margin for error of almost zero, and it makes it tremendously exciting. But I'm sure that Indian fans will feel the same when Travis Head is batting. He's a little bit riskier. You can sort of expect him to play some more audacious shots, and sometimes they come off and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they kind of half come off, and he really takes advantage of the fact that there are only 2 fielders inside the circle.
Now-
but I think for both teams, they're kind of like free hits that you just think, if either of them fire and actually go beyond 40 or 50, that can be a match-winning innings.
Absolutely. Taslim Granger, we have another Aussie on our screen right now who's troubled Indians for a long time, but not in this World Cup. He hasn't come of age till the semi-final. Just take us through the
You have Mitchell Starc on the screen right now. He's played 10 innings, picked up just 13 wickets with the best bowling figures of 3 for 34. His economy is sitting at 6.14 with an average of 36. In 77 overs, he's conceded 473 runs.
The question is, has he arrived to the party a little too late, or has he missed the party?
You know, I don't think you can arrive to the party a little too late, Sunil, especially when you're heading into a final. It's never too late to gain a bit of momentum and find yourself actually geared up and firing for the final. I do think that India need to be wary of Mitchell Starc and the way he played against South Africa and the way he's coming in. Someone I just want to point out to you that has been at the party all along and will be great support for him is Josh Hazlewood on the other end.
He doesn't get to be discussed as much as Mitchell Starc or Pat Cummins. Why is that, Paul? We want to understand. Hazlewood has been very destructive in spurts, but still no mention even in your Aussie media. Go on.
It's a strange one, and not only that, even the captain seems to forget about him. Incredibly, he bowled 8 overs, 2 for 12 in the semi-final, and he didn't bowl the final 2 overs. It's like he's so unremarkable. Cummins forgot that he existed. I think he's one of the keys for Australia. Starc, on the other hand, I think the reason he bowled so well in the semi-finals was he got overhead conditions to suit. When he gets conditions to suit, he's the best bowler in the world. But when he doesn't, then he can go the journey. It's up to Cummins to be very, very quick in assessing conditions in the final. If it's not working for Starc, then maybe he shouldn't bowl his full complement of 10 overs. If it is working, whether it's up to front with the new ball swinging or the reverse swing that he can get later, then that's going to be massively to Australia's advantage.
Absolutely. We've got these figures of key 5 players right now. Before we wrap up our show and go to Kamran Muzaffar, Tasneem, your views about the head-to-head we've done in 2 of the top batters and 2 of the top bowlers. Where do you think the balance lies?
Definitely, India obviously looking, we've been saying this for the past couple of days, India looking a way lot stronger than Australia. But again, the Australians have shown what they can do with the big match temperament on their side, as well as the fact that, I'm going to just remind you guys that head-to-head, Australia is sitting ahead of India. If we want to bring history into this as well, Australia is sitting head-to-head. Beat in World Cup knockout stages. They are leading this to India, currently 3-1 on the knockout front of any World Cup tournaments right now. Again, you take into consideration in their head-to-head in ODIs, Australia is leading this. So do they take their momentum of starting the tournament on a bad foot and coming up and just completely being step forward into the final with them, or do they succumb to India at this stage, who's just been firing from their first game?
Well, thank you, Tasneem. I'm going to ask Kamran Muzaffar. Kamran, if you're listening to us, what do you think? Will you go to history or will you go on the current form? Do you think India looks much stronger today, or when you put the entire historical perspective, where India is languishing? Your views?
Sunil, I would go for the champion attitude or champion mindset.
Very good.
Without putting it on a specific team or a specific players. Whoever play with the champion mindset, champion attitude, they will be the champion. In this tournament, what is different from the previous tournaments is the Australia that we knew of 99, of 2003, or 2007, or even later. That relentless, that ruthless Australian side who would pin people down, pin opponents down, and they won't let them get up. That's the attitude what made that Australian side that mighty Australian. In this tournament, we have seen that attitude more from India rather than Australia. So I think if they continue with this attitude, India are clear favorites.
Well, we've got an Aussie here and someone from Pakistan, our neighboring country, and we have Zimbabwean here. The issue is completely divided. Let's get the Englishman from London. David Brooks, what would you go in for if you were to put your money on? Would you go on the posterity, history, the current champion, the way India has been playing, or the champion mindset which Australia has been playing? Your views?
Always current form, Sunil. I always go for current form, and on the current form, you have to say that this India team have not put a foot wrong. And we've been celebrating the achievements of Virat Kohli and Mohammad Shami and the rest of the team. But when you actually look at the setup in India, it goes back to one man. It goes back to Rahul Dravid and the planning that he's put into this tournament. Not just with this group of players, but with all the structures that have been put in place to unearth the talent that is now gracing the stage for. And I think that is superior thinking, even to Australia. Now, man on the field, Australia's captain, Pat Cummins, has shown himself to be one cool customer, able to play smart cricket and outwit the opposition. But it won't be so easy with India. Rahul Dravid would have got the team together and have said, look, we have a plan for when Travis Head comes out, trying to do that to Bumrah and Shami. Is Travis Head going to be able to score 60 runs off 30 balls with the same ease against Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Shami? I asked that question. And then when you look at the batting of Australia, Paul, you'll forgive me, it's shaky. They've had to be bailed out of trouble on more than one occasion. Is Glenn Matthews capable of playing another innings of any substance after what he did? It didn't look like it in the last game. He came, he went. Mitch Marsh, really? Is his mind fully on the game? He had to go back to Australia during this tournament, for personal reasons. Warner, a last swan song for Warner against this quality bowling? I'm not sure. You see, we've seen Australia do it to the likes of, we've seen them come out of situations against all comers. We saw them do it against South Africa, but I thought South Africa were very naive in their approach, especially the captain. with the choice of bowlers, playing into the hands of Australia almost inviting them back into the game every time. You won't get that with India. So although you could make a very strong case for the Aussies because of their big match temperament, and of course they will seize on any weakness that they see, I cannot see where the weakness is. Someone said to me, the weakness is in India's batting, which hasn't been tested. Well, that's true. But Jadeja at 7 has been tested time and time again. And I've seen enough of Jasprit Bumrah's batting recently to know it's improved a lot. And if he's called on to score some quick runs at the end, I think he'll do that. So I would like to see India inviting Australia to bat today. I think then India can control the game. They can control the run chase. I would love to see India tomorrow, I should say, inviting Australia. It's going to be the longest weekend. I would like to see India inviting Australia to bat and saying to Travis Head, you try that approach against Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Shami. But credit to Rahul Dravid, credit for the planning that's gone into this tournament. The way that Bumrah was not rushed back, the way that Shreyas Iyer was not rushed back from injury. Not like other players, not like other teams like England who made so many mistakes. I'm looking at the England humiliated. That's the story here. England humiliated. I've got to read you something about Joss Buttler, Sunil. You'll love this.
Go on.
Dead team, dead format, players whose entire existence is itinerant, stretched thin, nourished on junk cricket. Buttler is a perfect case study of the effects of that diet. Buttler has been a luminous talent for so long that he has become a startlingly narrow cricketer.
Well,
skills confined to a single point.
David, we'll let you pass on that. Thank you for joining us. We agree to most of the junk things that you said about your English team, not the format. And I think it's here to stay. And we've got a unanimous critics, crowd, fans, even the current players in both the sides that ODI is here to stay. No matter what MCC or Mark Nicholas or Keith Arthurton or Mike Arthurton says in return.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.